Don't miss emerita pianist extraordinaire Dale Tsang when she performs a piano recital featuring 11 works chosen in E4TT's latest call for scores. She'll play not one, but two performances online and on both sides of the Bay, in Berkeley on February 22nd and in San Francisco on March 2nd. Welcome to For Good Measure, an interview series celebrating diverse composers and other creative artists, sponsored by a grant from the California Arts Council. I'm Nanette McGuinness, Artistic Executive Director of Ensemble for these times. In this week's episode, we are joined by E4TT Lunar Composition Lab Call for Scores winner Devon Lee, who we spoke to in June 2024. Thank you very much for doing this podcast with us, and congratulations again for being chosen from our Call for Scores.
It's an honor. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. So first, let's start out. Please tell me about yourself, who you are, where you grew up, your background in music, where you're going next, what's important to you.
Yeah. So my name is Devon Lee. Regarding, I guess, my background in music, I grew up in South Korea, and I took some music lessons, but it was never really like a huge part of my life until I moved to the US in around when I was in third grade.
Hmm.
I remember I started taking, I actually sort of randomly chosen in my elementary school to like take these kind of beginner composition lessons just to hear about different types of sound. And I actually had the opportunity to have like a short piece of mine played by some musicians, which was, insane. It's crazy that kids get to do that. And I know that a lot of like music programs can sometimes be like, it can be difficult, especially with the pandemic, it can be difficult for people to continue those programs in education. But just like, for me at least, that single program, it just completely changed my life. Like, and since then, I've just been doing a lot of different things. I've continued composing. I love writing. I've been writing a lot of chamber music. I've been wanting to explore more vocal music and orchestral music, maybe even electronic music, even though I really don't have a background in that. I also I've been playing double bass for around 4 years,
Ooh,
and
nice.
that's another passion of mine. I started both bass and composition thanks to one of my mentors, John Duke. He used to be in the New York Philly. He was also a composer. So yeah, I'm kind of right now where I'm going. I'd love to expand my music and what honestly I'm kind of, it can be kind of stressful to imagine like, oh, what's my brand, what am I going to do like for my life's portfolio. So I've been enjoying just like being a student, working on, okay, what if I try this, how can I improve this and that, and also of course like exploring what my sound is, but mostly just like not trying to get too existential about it, which I sometimes do. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
You're awfully young to decide your brand now. I think you should,
That's true.
I mean, not that my opinion counts, but you're how old right now?
I'm 17 right now.
You're 17. So, in fact, perhaps a bit of exploration to discover what you want to do before you put your stamp on a brand might be
Yeah.
appropriate. That's great.
Yeah.
When you moved to the US, where did you move?
I moved straight to New York City. That's
Nice.
where my mom grew up when she came to the US. And so I've kind of, well, my childhood was kind of split between Korea, the city of like Seongnam, and then Manhattan. And
Mhm.
those are kind of very different, I guess, vibes,
Yeah.
feelings. And so I was really lucky to like get placed smack dab in the middle of things. Like when I first came to the city, my first apartment was like like 2 blocks from Lincoln Center. So I was like
Wow.
already able to see a lot of cool things.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's great. And you're in college now, right?
Oh no, I'm actually I'm still in high school.
You're in high school.
Yes,
Wow.
I'm actually a junior.
You're a rising junior?
Yeah, it's been weird to be 17 and rising junior. It's because uh I I came from Korean school where the year starts in
Yeah.
like around January, so a bit old for my grade, but yeah.
Oh no, my son was old for his grade two. He went to a 2-year
Oh, really?
kindergarten program. Yeah,
Mm,
it just kind of depends on where your birthday falls and what's best for you. So it
yeah.
sounds like an anomaly, but when you explain it, it's absolutely not. It's totally normal. So you're playing the double bass. Does that mean you're interested in jazz and playing jazz, or are you primarily interested in classical bass?
Well, I my like my immediate love is for classical bass. That's where I started, and that's where my passion and my training that all goes into that. That's like genuinely one of my favorite and like most spiritual experiences is just being in orchestra and playing with other people. But God, like jazz has been kind of like I don't want to say kind of like my white whale for the past couple of years. Like I've always wanted to get into it because not only like musically it seems so challenging and exciting, but it also feels like compositionally really not helpful. Like obviously the whole like crazy field of jazz isn't just like a tool, but it feels like it would just infinitely open my eyes. But
Yeah,
I've been
yeah.
struggling definitely with, but I think it's like not a talent, it's like a skill that you get through practice. I think I just need to work on that. But I am primarily a classical bassist. Yeah,
No, that's great. And you do have time to explore. So, so
definitely.
what does being a composer mean to you and what draws you to it?
Since I've been in a lot of different spaces for kids learning about composition, the first thing that people ask is kind of like, what is a composer? What does making music mean? And God, for me, I feel like I was saying before about trying not to get too existential. I feel like I used to think that composing was kind of like, you know, inscribing your name upon the world, like kind of, like the great, um, yeah, kind of like Mahler-esque, just kind of like that. But it's a Mahlerian, I don't know. But I think for me, it's for a long time, it was just kind of like expressing this or that, kind of month to month, day to day, what I wanted to hear and making that. And then it sort of incorporated, I know a lot of people say this, but kind of like a creative outlet or like emotional outlet
Hmm.
to describe things that I just couldn't through words. I often struggle a lot with words. I've always loved creative writing, but I'm kind of like a really, I get bashful very easily when sharing about myself. So instrumental music or setting someone else's words and putting my own meaning behind it was really huge for me. And it made me really feel like it gave me an in to expressing myself.
Hmm.
And not that instrumental music is any less exposed than creative writing or anything like that. But for me, at least, it felt like just the way that I think was the right modality for me to share things. For me, I think being a composer, honestly, is just anyone who wants to like write and share music. I don't feel like there should be that like kind of pedagogy or like fear behind it of like, oh, I haven't taken 10 levels of theory. I'm not a composer. But just anyone who's like, I want to write, make music.
Right, as opposed to some kind of towering Beethovenian figure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what it sounds like to me from what you're saying
Mhm.
is that writing music frees you to explore expressive modalities in ways that words get you feeling stuck.
Yeah. I don't really know what it is. Maybe I've recently, when I've been writing and just kind of living my life, I've been thinking a lot about, kind of my background and how that influences me.
Yes.
I think a thing about me growing up, moving between two countries, coming from like, I'm Korean and I come from like an Asian background. And in America, it can be kind of like a kind of stereotype that's kind of rooted in general culture is kind of staying a bit quiet. Um, Not just like overall, but also about the parts of you that, you want to scream about, or the parts that are just like, I guess, the most personal. It can
Hmm.
be a bit like where does my story even kind of fall into? I always felt like it was too in between or too gray for a lot of expression. So being able to express that in a way that's already kind of gray and in between, and I think that's kind of how I would describe some of my music, just kind of like towing a lot of different lines was really cool for me.
You know, the thing about stereotypes is they don't fit everyone. That's why they're
Yeah,
dangerous. So,
absolutely.
you know, and that's why they're unfortunate as well.
Yeah. I speak about my experience with this, but I think that's really personal. Like, I don't think that this applies to like any of my Asian friends at all. Like, I think it's just something that I personally deal with. Obviously, I'm not going to be someone's stereotype.
No, of course not.
Thank you for listening to For Good Measure. And a special thank you to our guest, Devon Lee, for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast by clicking on the subscribe button and support us by sharing it with your friends, posting about it on social media, and leaving us a rating and a review. To learn more about E4TT, our concert season online and in the Bay Area, or to make a tax-deductible donation, please visit us at e4tt.org. This podcast is made possible in part by a grant from the California Arts Council and generous donors like you. For Good Measure is produced by Nanette McGuinness and Ensemble for These Times and designed by Brennan Stokes, with special thanks to co-producer and audio engineer Stephanie M. Neumann. Remember to keep supporting equity in the arts and tune in next week for Good Measure.